Here we go. Here we go.
Guess who's back? Back
Let's
again. Yes,
let's
we're back. Tell your friends.
let's jump into this thing right quick because people who listen to all of these episodes hear enough from us as it is. So if you're a real listener and you actually jump in and you listen to these episodes, I love you specifically you that's listening to me say this right now. And I'm going to attempt to reward you by not taking a whole lot of your time on this episode.
Yes, I
Yes.
don't promise the same.
Fair enough. Yeah, if you listen to this and it happens to be long, then you run that risk when you listen to us. So suck it
Yeah.
up. Um, so we don't really talk a whole lot of news these days, mostly because I don't really care all that much.
Yeah, and I forget. So,
Yeah, but let's preface why we're doing this episode by saying the reason I brought this up is
well, what are we
because
doing? Do you want to say what we're doing?
yeah, so we're gonna talk Drake versus Kanye,
Yes.
uh, the Battle of the Titans, because when this was what 2 years ago, they were in this like mega beef, and we're both about to drop like highly anticipated albums with
Yeah.
Certified Lover Boy and Donda. Kanye's label got sick of dealing with him, so they just said, "No, we're releasing it tonight. Suck it up." Um, and then the next week, Drake was like, "Okay, now I can drop mine because his
Yep.
already came out."
Yep.
uh, so that happened, and both Grammy nominated. Drake asked that they withdrew his because he hates the Grammys. Kanye ended up not winning that one. But anyways, both albums that a lot of people loved and a lot of people hated. More
Yeah.
importantly, is why we're having this discussion. But the reason that this even came up for this episode is because the rumor mill has now been stirring, especially after Drake's album
Mhm.
dropped. I don't know if you've heard any of this, that Kanye is very close to releasing an album, so to
Oh, no
speak.
way.
That's word on the street. Um, and I've heard rumors of two to even three albums that are in the works. I've heard he's got a solo one that he's very close with. Um, he has a collab album, so to supposedly with Ty Dolla Sign that
I've
he's
heard
working
that
on.
one. I've heard about that one.
And then also on a Reddit a while ago, somebody leaked the completed version of Jesus is King 2.
Oh, wow.
Um, it's more, I would say it's more like a deluxe of Jesus is King, just from what I've heard about it. It's a
Yeah.
lot of the original songs, but with Dr. Dre production over a lot of them,
Wow.
and some additional features and a couple of unreleased songs. And I've heard it's like the completed, better version of Jesus is King, which is pretty cool.
Super cool.
Um,
Yeah.
I like everybody in music. If you listen to music reviews, you probably know of Anthony Fantano, who is known for roasting albums. But anyways, I watched a video he listened through the leaked Jesus is King project and had a lot to say about it. But he said that some of Kanye's best featured artists are on this project. He said it's the best feature he's ever heard from Travis Scott on this album,
Wow.
which is crazy. And
Yeah.
I've actually heard the same thing just going online and reading people's opinions of the album. So anyways, because Drake dropped For All the Dogs, which was pretty highly anticipated, and Kanye's supposedly dropping, both at the center of drama as per usual,
Yep.
in the music industry. I felt like it was a good time. Like, hey, let's bring this debate back up. We didn't have this podcast when this happened, so
Right.
let's look into these albums, and we have a criteria now
We do.
for albums and why we feel the way we feel about them. And so we're going to
Yes.
kind of put these albums head to head. Drake versus Kanye. Where do you want to start?
Off of like criteria.
Sure. Or if you have preface that you want to say before.
Um, I'll say this. I feel basically the exact same about Drake, and I feel better about Donda after this
Interesting.
listen. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's
Cool.
really, I wrote down so many notes.
Sweet. Let's dive into these because I feel like I've always liked Donda. It was one of my albums of the year when it came out, and
Yeah.
I've always hated Certified Lover Boy.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, my disdain for it has been softened. I'll say that
Mm.
before we get into this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are we doing this?
So I say we just kind of go through our topics like one at a time. Any notes that
Like
we
off of
have?
the criteria.
Yeah, any notes that
Okay.
we have, and then which album did it better? Like which album is better in that criteria?
Okay. So I mean, if we're doing that, we might as well just start from the top of our criteria list. So off of
Yeah,
production.
yeah.
Um, Me personally, I always feel as if Kanye is going up against anyone, it's hard to beat him in production, and I do feel that is the same in this instance. Um, I think Donda surpasses Certified Lover Boy in production, but I'll also give Drake some credit. There were some great productions within Certified Lover Boy. Some that like I didn't really respect first listening. Mainly because I look at music a lot differently now. And I try to treat every album and every artist fairly with my
Hmm.
own critiques. Um, so with that said, I do think Donda is still better, but I'll give the respect to Drake too.
Yeah, I don't have too much to disagree with on that. I definitely still think Donda has a lot more to offer in terms of its production. Um, Kanye is obviously known for that, right? That's
Yeah.
his, what people come back to with him. Um, and I don't think that Drake tends to have that quality of production
Mhm.
top to bottom on many, if any, of his albums. And that all that being said, I think this is one of Kanye's better produced albums in terms of stylistically what he was able to put together throughout
Yeah.
it. I mean, even if you're talking just starting off with the big on jail and
Take
like
what you want. Bow, bow.
yeah, like it's crazy. And then you get into tracks like Off the Grid with a lot of drill tempo, and then like
Right.
the I on that track I love the little electronic steps that you hear in the background that's like
Yeah.
as things are kind of shifting. Um and then you get into songs like Moon, like the guitar strings over Moon are crazy.
Go to the moon.
We should just have you re-record this album, and that'll be an episode.
I'm down. Okay,
Yeah,
I got it.
yeah,
Um,
but
to
sorry, and
play the other side,
yeah,
um, kind of a couple shout outs for like Certified Lover Boy. I think some great produced tracks are those of like Knife Talk, I think is a great instrumental. I hate this song, but Way Too Sexy, I like its instrumental.
yeah,
Um, and then the honestly still one of my favorite Drake songs in general. Champagne Poetry. I love the simplicity of it. It's nothing major or crazy, but it's very mellow and soft toned and like the little harmonies. Yeah, I love that song a lot.
yeah. Another one from Certified Lover Boy that I wanted to bring up with the production is the track "In Too Deep" with Future. I
Mm.
don't know if you caught that one. It starts off with like this dun, 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 like, and there's kind of this repeating like
Yeah,
bass line that it comes back to. That's pretty sweet.
yeah.
But my honestly, like my most underrated produced song on either of these albums is "No Child Left Behind" at the end of Donda.
Mm.
That like production is so cinematic and crazy, and then
Yeah.
Kanye comes in and he's just like, "He's done miracles on me." That's so crazy.
Hey, maybe
Oh,
we
I
can
love that
both
one.
just recreate the album.
No, I'm gonna leave that to you, man. Um, but yeah, like just to summarize all that, I do think Donda's a much better album, like you said, production wise. But
Yeah.
Certified Lover Boy has its moments, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Agreed. Do you want to, because I saw in the criteria you talk about ratings out of 10. Did you
Yeah,
also want to say your ratings for each? Did you do that?
honestly, I didn't give them both
Okay.
a rating just because it was too many albums.
Okay.
But
Cool.
yeah.
Okay, bet.
Um, but let's move on to, I think vocals is next.
Yeah.
Which one of these are you feeling vocally?
Dude, this I'm not gonna lie. This one's tough. It was very tough because
Mm-hmm.
Drake is known for his vocals, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said in the last week's episode, don't count Kanye out. And in
Yeah.
this, because I did ratings, like I didn't know exactly how it was supposed to be, but I'm
Right.
assuming just each one gets 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
So it came down to I have Donda over Certified Lover Boy, but like
Wow.
9/8.
Wow.
Like it was like right there. Cause I do still think that Drake gives good vocal performances. Do I think they're anything as his best? No, but they're
Mm-hmm.
still solid. But for me, I feel like this is Kanye's like some of his best vocals in general.
Mm.
Like I have a lot of respect for that aspect out of Kanye in this album. I feel, and especially if you think about like the album overall, like it's not supposed to be this hardcore album. It's not supposed to be like diss tracks or crazy lyrical tracks. Like it's supposed to be meaningful. It's supposed to be beautiful. Like it only makes sense for those kinds of harmonies and melodies. And even some of the features he chose, like all give off these very um great performances vocally. And I don't think Kanye gets outshined by any of these other artists. I feel like he's right up there with them, if not at times better. And so for that, I gave Kanye the edge.
Very cool. Very cool. Um, honestly, I feel like we're pretty similar again, but I'm gonna flip you here
Yeah.
because I think, like you're saying, it's a very versatile Kanye album, probably in a very underrated way. Like I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people look at 808s and they're
Yeah.
like, Kanye singing on here is really nice, or you've got, various tracks on his early stuff, College Dropout, or wherever you want to look, that have him singing some in some pretty impressive ways. But I feel like a lot of people may not come to Donda and realize like, oh man, Kanye's coming in with
Yeah.
some soul vocals here
Yeah.
on Jail or on No Child Left Behind, or wherever you want to look for it.
Right.
And even just vocally in terms of his rap voice, I think he shows a lot of versatility on this project as well. Whether he's going into a song like Off the Grid with like a drill type
Mm-hmm.
flow, and a voice like that, I think that's pretty cool. I just went with Drake because I think he showcases a little bit more versatility
Mm-hmm.
overall. I think he kind of bounces between some very pop. I don't want to say soulful, but just like a lot more distinct singing
Yeah.
performances, and then also gets his moments of going into some trap style stuff or some harder core sounds with like a Fair Trade or something like that.
Yeah.
Or No Friends in the Industry, I think is also very diverse from like some of the singing tracks on the album. But I will say I think it's closer than it should be because, like you're saying, I think Drake is known for his vocals,
Mm-hmm.
and I've heard him have the capability to be very good in singing and very good rapping.
Right.
And I think he does both pretty lazily on this album. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty mediocre, but I think he skates by Kanye just a little bit based on talent
Mm-hmm.
between those two. So I gave the edge to Certified Lover Boy, but
Yeah.
not
See,
by much.
the reason why I gave Kanye the slide is because of Drake's lackadaisical um
Yeah.
energy, like emotion, all of the above, while Kanye gave what I expect from Drake. So,
Yeah,
but that
fair
one,
enough.
I'm not gonna lie, that one was a hard one. Like I kind of just sat there just thinking to myself, like, who would I actually give this to? So that one took forever for me to decide.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, cool. Now that we're through the vocal performances, how did you feel about the lyrics on these two projects?
So I'm yeah, I'm giving it to I'm giving it to Donda. Um which this one was tough too because I don't think Drake did anything incredible. But then you also look at Donda and like Kanye in a good majority of the songs repeats the exact same line over and over again. So it's
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in both these albums, it's hard to find like good lyrics, like actually good lyrics, whether it's like, okay, I'm trying to be cheesy like Drake does often, or not often, but every once in a while he'll throw in one of those cheesy
Right.
lines. And then I feel like it's the same for Kanye, except instead of cheesy, well, I mean, he has some of those too, but like more so, hey, this is a good line. So it's
Yeah.
these aren't very good projects for lyrics. I feel like if you were to look at the features, that then it becomes a whole different story.
Yeah.
If you talk about just Drake and Kanye, it's difficult. I honestly probably gave it to Kanye because Drake wanted to say you you're a lesbian, well me too, and then so that docks points
Yeah.
automatically. And then I didn't realize, but Kanye took a page out of your notebook and said it was the best crossover since Taco Bell and KFC in a song.
Well, let's uh let's be clear here. That's not I did not originate that saying,
Oh,
though.
I've just been tricked.
Yeah, I
Oh,
I I saw that ages ago on someone, like I just saw memes circulating about the Avengers movie, and
yeah.
they're like, people are calling this the best crossover since KFC Taco Bell when like the Guardians of the Galaxy joined. So that's where I originally heard it, and I was like, that's a great phrase, but it applies to so much more than
Yeah.
this. And then I heard Kanye say it too, and I was like, hey, I say that all the time.
Okay. Well,
But anyways,
yeah,
it's still a
still.
good bar. It's still a good bar.
I was like, hey,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I am again kind of with you on here. Even just coming into both of these projects, I don't think lyrics are either of their fortes
Yeah.
generally. I think they both have great moments at various times in their career where it's like, whoa, that's a crazy bar or
Yeah.
whatever. But it's not like, I don't come to them with the expectation that I go into like a Nas album or an
Yeah.
Eminem album or a Jay-Z album. Um, but I did give the edge to Donda, and it mostly came down to things that, like you said, I think Drake goes a little bit over the top cheesy sometimes,
Yeah.
just trying to be goofy and funny. And I really do blame social media for that, because that's like what trends nowadays. And I,
Yeah.
I don't think Drake is doing it for any other reason than to get the song trending.
Yeah.
But like on Way Too Sexy, he really starts off his verse by coming in with, okay, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
Yeah.
it's not very good.
No.
And Kanye's got some cheesy bars for sure on his
Yeah.
project too, but like he has songs also like Jesus Lord, where he's telling like a very heartbreaking, deep story if you're listening to the lyrics. Um, and so, or like he's talking about on Hurricane going through his divorce and like infidelity and the things that
Yeah.
have led up to this hurricane, and like trying to find the eye of the storm and it all. Like there's a lot of deep
Yeah.
storytelling moments that I want to give the edge for, because I don't, like you're saying, I don't think lyrically there's like punchlines or one liners on either of these
Yeah.
projects that I'm like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
crazy. But because of the storytelling and heart that Kanye puts into the lyrics, as opposed to the heart that Drake puts into the lyrics, that's where I lean on this one.
Yeah. Makes sense. Cool. Now we go into concept. What do you have?
I've got Don Don this one as well.
Yep.
I think Certified Lover Boy is like, this may be surprising, but I do think it's an interesting concept for a Drake album
Yeah,
because like you have all the memes like Drake the type of guy to, whatever.
yeah,
Like Drake's the type of guy to clap when the plane lands or whatever you want to say the meme is, or like, he's just kind of known as that guy in hip hop.
yeah.
Um, and so I honestly don't mind it. And there's tongue in cheek moments on the album that I don't really mind all that much.
Hmm.
Um, but I think Donda has a much more um, passion, passionate, I guess, just a much deeper concept.
Yeah.
Going through like just from top to bottom, like I'm gonna start like here by saying I don't really think Kanye is all that good of a guy, and
Yeah.
he's got tons of issues that are well within their rights to dislike him for.
Hmm.
But if you look at the context of this album, his mother's died, has passed away. He's going through a divorce. He's having, manic and bipolar episodes and going through all kinds of turmoil.
Hmm.
And a lot of these songs are like directly birthed out of that. Even if you start with something like Donda Chant as the intro,
Yeah.
like I don't know if this is confirmed. I read at one point that was the EKG
Yeah.
waves of his mother's heart rate, which is like you don't get anything like that processed on this Drake
Hmm.
album as a concept. As well as like her little interludes, Donda West, his mother's like interludes that she provides at various points, like on Praise God. That whole intro is actually like a very interesting and moving statement that she's making.
Yeah.
And even though it has kind of been, popularized just by TikTok sounds, but I think the way they're executed, Drake's concept comes across very uh, over dramatic,
Yeah.
and that kind of shows in like the cheesiness or laziness of some of the song
Yeah.
concepts.
Yeah. I agree. I felt like that one was probably the easiest one to pick out.
Yeah,
But I do agree, like with what you're saying about Drake, it's very Drake fitting.
yeah,
Um, so like to say that there's no concept or like it was very not very well thought out. Like I feel like it was very well thought out, just it
yeah,
could have been a lot better than what we got. Um, but yeah, no, Kanye was very in depth. You can tell that he put so much thought uh into this album, into each track. Whether or not I agree with some of the tracks or my enjoyment to some of them is whatever, but
yeah,
it's yeah, I agree. It's honestly a very beautiful written up concept. If you like, because I read the lyrics to almost every single one, like it's it's really cool to see like Kanye with that kind of um work.
yeah, for
So
sure. Um, I'll wrap that one up by saying, a little Inception like statement here that for certified, or I guess for Drake, in concept, I enjoy the concept of the concept certified lover boy, but I don't think it's very well executed. That
yeah.
was a little too deep for this podcast. I think it went over my own head. Um, how do you feel about all these features? It's kind of weird with these two albums. There's a ton of overlap, like a lot of the
Yeah.
same artists.
Yeah. Not only that, there's a lot on
Yeah.
both. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I hate when artists do this. I'm not gonna lie, bro. Please just tell me who's featured on the freaking album, please. like, like I don't know many of these artists by just their voice. Like,
Sure. And
please
on
just tell
especially
me.
on Donda, there's a lot of like artists that you may not have heard before if you're just kind of like a
Yeah,
more casual fan.
you're right. So yeah, that was a pain to try to figure out who was who. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I'm giving it to Kanye. I'm giving
Mm-hmm.
it to Donda. Because even though I feel like Donda has more features, which I don't even know if I would say it really detracted from this album, just because if you listen to Kanye, like at one of his if you want to call it like a sermon, I don't know if it was like a concert, I don't know what it was, but he's with all these
Yeah.
choir people and he's like, people come to my studio to like praise God, like that's what they do now, like God is welcomed in like Ye's studio, things like that. And so a lot of these artists, like I don't expect to rap or sing or whatever about, these kinds of subjects. I wouldn't expect it. And
Hmm.
so for them to come in with more emotion and like kind of showing that side to them too, I feel helps this album more so than detracts. And that's not to say that Certified Lover Boy that is there, oh my gosh, his features detract either, because I feel like that's a very lighthearted album, and he's just going to get a bunch of his homies on whenever he wants, and they're going to do whatever they do, which to
Hmm.
me that doesn't detract because that's the kind of album it is to me. um but that being said, I think I enjoyed the meaning behind these features, um their verses or their choruses. I think if you look at something like vocal performances, Kanye's features easily beat that one. um
Hmm.
Even like we talk about how there wasn't like hard hitting bars, and then you go into the features, and like I said in last week's episode, Jay-Z comes in with one of the hardest verses I've heard come out of his mouth. Same with DaBaby.
Yeah.
So things of that nature like just give the edge to Kanye. But like I said, I this was another close one for me. In terms of rating, I did Donda 8, uh, CLB 7. So it
Hmm.
was once again close to me because I still feel like with Certified Lover Boy, the features that were chosen fit the album and usually fit the song. Um, so yeah, that was another little close little battle for me.
Yeah, for sure. For me, honestly, I think it's not quite as low as close as it was for you.
Mhm.
I think Donda for sure has better features, though. I think the features on Certified Lover Boy are one of its stronger points. Like,
Yeah,
I think Travis delivers a pretty solid feature. 21 has a great feature on
yeah,
it. Even Rick Ross and Lil Wayne both have good
yeah,
features. I don't particularly dislike anything about the Jay feature or the Kid Cudi feature on Drake's album. But then I go over to Donda, and yeah, Jay doesn't have like a bad verse on Drake's album, if you want to say that. But then you come to Jail and you're like,
even
this dude
worse.
obviously cares way more about this album and this song than he does about whatever the heck track he was on Drake's album.
Yeah,
Or you look at like Kid Cudi. Even I think Kid Cudi has a better performance on Donda on Moon than he does on
yeah,
Drake's album. Same with Travis. I think Travis has a much better feature. Lil Baby, like let's not even talk about the song that he's on. You want to talk about Girls Want Girls versus Hurricane? Like
yeah,
his
yeah.
feature on Hurricane's much more impressive and much more deep.
Right.
Um, but I think the coolest part about Donda in terms of its features is the things that Kanye or the quality that Kanye is able to get out of the artist that he brings to the table. Like we know
Yeah.
Don Tolliver's a very talented artist, but Don Tolliver comes in on Moon and sounds like an angel on this track. Like it's so impressive.
Bro, it almost brings a tear to my eye every single time. It's
Yeah.
when this album first came out, that was the only good point to me. Like I hated both of these albums so very much, but that was the only good point I got from both of these albums combined was I want to go to the moon.
That's pretty good.
Oh, thank you. But Don does
Yeah.
it like 20 times better.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And then The Weeknd has a great feature. I mean, I've come to expect that from him.
Yeah.
But then there's artists that like you say like you feel like maybe are on quote unquote a downfall in terms of their popularity, or they're not that well known. Like there's an artist named Vori
Yeah.
who's on Jonah, and then he's on the No Child Left Behind track as well.
Yeah.
He sounds fantastic on that.
Yeah.
Lil Baby, who you say like you could argue is maybe on like a quote unquote downfall, though I don't really think he was too much at this point, but like sounds great. Gives one of
Yeah.
his better verses on Hurricane. The
Even the
Baby,
baby, yeah.
great verse there towards the end of the album. Um, and even Roddy Ricch on Pure Souls isn't
Yeah.
as a feature that I came back to and I was like, holy crap, like, is this really Roddy Ricch? Like, I don't this is not like a song of his that like I'm familiar with the
Yeah.
quality lately for sure. Um, so anyways, I think what he's able to get out of some of those artists is really impressive compared to what maybe on their solo works or whatever.
Yeah. Agreed. Moving on into
Um,
the replay value.
yeah,
This one was another close one for me because
really,
for the main reason being obviously this has come out years ago,
sure,
whatever I'm trying to say.
yeah,
And so I already had songs downloaded from both albums respectfully. And so I had to think about, do I listen to those songs now, and after doing these re-listens, will I listen to these songs more, or
yeah,
will I get back into it? Will it go back into my rotation? Like whatever. So it was really close. And this is the only one that I do give to Certified Lover Boy, if
wow,
I'm not mistaken. And I'll tell you, and this was close. This was a 1 point difference.
yeah,
Um, I've listened to Champagne Poetry tons of times. Like I said, it's one of my favorite Drake songs, period. Um, and even though it doesn't have a better catalog of songs in the album, there are songs that I would probably listen to more at any given moment
mm,
than I would with Donda. Like, dude, I listened to Fair Trade and I was like, why is this so good?
yeah,
That song, for my notes, I simply wrote, nah, this a banger. That's it. I forgot how good of a song that was all
yeah,
the way around. Um, Even with No Friends in the Industry, both of those songs are like solid like bangers, and I'm like, yeah, all of the above. Those are
yeah,
amazing songs. Now Donda has, I think, better quality songs and more of them. I do think I'll listen more, but I don't think I would listen as frequently, even to like, compared to the ones I have downloaded now, to even No Friends in the Industry and Fair Trade. I'd probably
hmm
listen to those two more than whatever I have from Donda.
yeah, yeah. That's a fair perspective to be at. Honestly, I'm not like too far off from you. I think there's a couple on Certified Lover Boy that I'd probably come back to more often than I would come back to stuff off of the Donda album. Those primarily being Fair Trade, which I think is the best song on the album, and then Knife Talk, which
Yeah.
is another 21 Savage feature that I really enjoy. But I think there's a lot more from Donda that I would come back to overall.
Yeah.
Um, and like even just this last time, like I ended up adding some tracks to my playlist that were songs that I didn't really love all that much when it came out,
Mhm.
uh, which were Jesus Lord, Pure Souls, and No Child Left Behind.
Yeah.
Um, but then like on top of that, tracks that I still loved in the first place, I was like, these are still great. Like
Yeah.
whether that's Moon or Hurricane or Jail or Off the Grid or God Breathed or whatever. So I ended up giving it to Donda just because I think the quantity far surpasses the uh, obviously the quantity of Drake songs, but I hear the quantity for me outweighs the quality. Like I'm just getting so much from Donda,
Right.
whereas most of Certified Lover Boy, I'm not going to come back to. Though I will say, just as a whole album replay, Donda is a grind to re-listen to because there's a
27 to
ton of
21 songs if you're
yeah,
just listening to the original.
yeah, and there's so much bloat on it. Like there's a lot of tracks that I could do without. I think
Yeah.
it could have been a 15 track album, and I would have loved that. Um, but yeah, I still gave the edge to Donda there.
Yeah.
So
I'm not gonna lie. there will never be a time again where I will listen to the both of these albums all the way through. There will not be one other time. I'm not doing
Yeah,
it. They were both a
it's a
grind.
bit much. It's a bit
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it shows for both of us that we heavily, at least for me, I would say I heavily prefer Donda over
Oh yeah.
Certified Lover Boy.
Yeah. Yeah. I so you didn't do the ratings. I went all the way through. I don't know if you ranked it at all, like gave it a rating.
Yeah,
So with the math behind our criteria, Donda came out to a 7 out of 10, and Certified Lover Boy came out to a 6 out of 10. I would probably drop Certified Lover Boy down 0.5. I'd probably give it a 5.5 just because there's not many tracks I would listen to again.
hmm
Donda's cool at a 7. If anything, maybe I'd do a 7.5 just for quality purposes.
yeah,
But pretty close overall. I'm not even really mad at the 6, honestly. Like it's whatever, but
yeah.
I'd say it's pretty
Um,
close.
I did give it overall ratings. For me, I said Certified Lover Boy was a 4 out of 10, um, which is pretty low. But like, if 5 is the threshold where I'd say I enjoyed the album overall,
Yeah.
then I feel like 4 says it's not an album I enjoy all that much, but it has its redemptive qualities, which is pretty
Yeah.
much how I feel about it. So I'm cool with that one. And then Donda is right about it at an 8, which is something that I'm totally cool with. I think it's not really all that close to a perfect album, but it's an album that I enjoy a lot.
Yeah.
And so I feel pretty good about both of those. But what are your? I think we've kind of like alluded to at least the Certified Lover Boy side, but what are your best, uh, worst, and most underrated songs from
Ooh.
this album?
For Donda or for Certified Lover Boy?
You can do both, whichever one you want to do first.
So I think most underrated, I'm gonna keep saying it, is Champagne Poetry.
Mm,
Because obviously there's a lot of not a lot, but there's a good amount of hard hitters within the album still for best.
yeah,
And there's a great catalog for worst song. Um, worst song I'm still gonna say is "Girls Want Girls," but "Way Too Sexy" is not far behind in my opinion.
yeah,
Um, and then I think the best on it for me, it's gonna be Fair Trade. Um, but like I said, No Frenzy in the Industry and even Knife Talk are both solid candidates. For Donda, this one's a little tough because I don't know it. It doesn't pop out to me as easy as it does for Certified Lover Boy.
yeah,
Um, my favorite one's probably gonna be Moon, just because of the vocals. Absolutely killed.
yeah.
Um, for worst, um, where's one that I just said lame? Because there's gotta be one. Oh, 24 or Junior.
Interesting. Yeah.
Um, I'm still not a Playboy fan.
Mm,
And to me, like that one seemed out of place out of the album. Like it didn't
it
seem
does. Yeah.
fitting at all.
hmm
Um, I would say I'm gonna give underrated to either Jonah or uh part one of Okay Okay because I really liked Little Yachty's part. I thought that was an interesting collaboration, and I think it was pulled off very well.
Yeah. Very interesting picks.
Yeah.
When the album initially came out, those were my two picks for most underrated track.
Oh,
To this day, I think Jonah is one of Kanye's most underrated songs in his
yeah, it's
catalog.
solid.
I love Vori's vocals on that. Going through them this time, I went just a slightly different avenue with most underrated.
Yeah.
I just went with a track this time that jumped out to me that didn't jump out to me before. So like a track that maybe I underrated is
Yeah.
kind of what I went
Okay.
with. And for Donda, this time going through it, that was Pure Souls with Roddy Rich for
Mm,
me.
that's valid.
I was so impressed by it in a way that I was like, I don't even remember this the first time. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, But I think the worst song was the second version of "Okay Okay."
Yeah, that's
I do
fair.
enjoy the first one a fair amount. And there's a good amount of weak tracks overall on the album, but I think just this one already isn't the best, though I think it's pretty underrated. And so to do a part two of it without like the interesting aspect of it being a very unique Lil Yachty feature,
Yeah.
just made it not as enjoyable to me. I think the best one is it's a pretty basic answer. I think it's a lot of people's favorite song, but it's Off the Grid. I really like the switch ups throughout the song, the
Yeah.
versatile features, hearing Kanye in a little bit of a different bag than he normally may be in
Yeah.
is pretty cool. So that was one that I really enjoyed. But there's a ton that are up there, to be honest. Like Moon is up there, Hurricane's up there, Jail's up there, Praise God is up there. There's a lot of tracks on this
Right.
album that I think can be argued. But to go over to Certified Lover Boy, the track that I definitely underrated the most the first time I listened to it was In Too Deep with Future. I think the songs that do pretty well on the album are pretty adequately respected. Like I
Yeah.
think Fair Trade and Knife Talk are both pretty popular. No Friends in the Industry is pretty popular. Even the Lil Wayne, Rick Ross track, I think does
Yeah.
pretty well. So I think this one is one that I was like, whoa, this isn't actually half bad. I kind of enjoy it. I do think Champagne Poetry is pretty underrated.
Yeah.
But that would have been my pick for most underrated the first time I went through it. So I just went a little different avenue this time.
Right.
Um, and our worst and our best are the same on this one. Girls Want Girls for me is really annoying. I don't think
Yeah.
it's all that funny. I think it's just
No.
really cringy. Um, it really just feels like Drake trying to make ridiculous songs for TikTok airtime is really what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And that's pretty annoying.
Yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
for me, the best song, though I think there's a couple that are pretty good. I don't think this one's all that close for me. It's Fair Trade. I think
Yeah.
that song's fantastic. It's one of my favorite Drake songs. It's a great Travis Scott feature. Um, so yeah, that's where I leave it off with those ones.
I like it. I like your choices.
Well, um, we did it. We made it through the Drake versus Kanye debate and beef.
And I'm not gonna lie, this was a
And
lot more bearable and a lot easier than even a third of Taylor Swift's discography.
fair enough. But
Sorry, we're just known
um,
for hating Taylor Swift. I had to throw
yeah,
something.
no, that was like every day listening to Taylor Swift pretty much nonstop. That was a grind.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a grind for almost any artist to do like 12 hours of their music, but like
Yeah.
one that especially you're not that big of a fan of,
Then
that's a
it's
grind.
difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Um,
anyways,
well, we'll be back next week most likely, unless something crazy happens,
right.
with something new. I don't even know what we're going to talk about yet. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, we won't schedule it out this time because then
Yeah,
it
there's no
won't
point.
happen. Yeah, there's really no
It
point.
always changes.
It
It
needs
always
to just stay
changes.
between us and just 1 week
Yeah.
at a time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. Well,
Yes.
it's time to go watch more football.
It's football season.
Yeah.
I just got the
I am
notification
currently,
saying that you have almost doubled my points in fantasy.
yep.
Yeah. So I hope you're enjoying your bye week.
I'm that guy.
Also, Ty doesn't know this and he never will, but I vetoed the trade between me and him because I saw Debo Samuels get hurt. And I don't need another hurt guy.
Oh, confirmed on the podcast. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
It's not cheating. There's a button where you can uphold or veto it. Everyone, excuse me?